Right, Gary, welcome. This is another edition of the TEXO podcast, where we just try and find out more about the people that work for the company. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I wouldn't tell you my age, but
well, that's it. Comes with experience, Gary.
I know, it does. Really, how I got into sales was I was a hygiene manager in a food producing factory, and we bought detergents and disinfectants from a company in Manchester. At the time, they were looking for a sales rep in the northeast of Scotland. Spoke to myself about it. I spoke to them about it. I had no sales experience, but I did know how to clean a factory. On the back of that, I was offered the job, and that was me into sales, selling detergents, disinfectants, and giving advice on how to clean not only the tabletops but underneath the tables, etc., etc.
So you were selling the products, the cleaning products.
Yes.
And beforehand, you were using them.
Yes, absolutely. So I knew the products anyway. I knew the good ones and the not so good ones, and I knew how they worked, how to apply them, and what needed to be done before they were applied.
It's an interesting dichotomy, that, isn't it? That a lot of salesmen or salespersons, people, sell something but have no idea what they're actually selling because they haven't used it or their skill sets aren't in that.
No, you're probably right. It was, to be honest, getting into sales was something I had not really considered. What happened, the factory I was cleaning unfortunately closed, and they moved the product to a site in England. At the time, I was going to be out of a job, which is where the interview came from initially.
So how did you find yourself in the midst of TEXO?
So long story. So the job I took in sales, again, unfortunately, a lot of the food factories in the northeast of Scotland closed. The Grampian Food Group, for example, etc. And a position came up at a company called SureClean. They serviced the oil and gas industry, mainly rigs, but platforms as well. And that was me at the right old age of about 32 into sales in the oil and gas. From there, I had 10, 12 years with SureClean, and then I met in with the two gentlemen that owned HVAC and refrigeration engineering. So I chat with them. I took a position with them for 13 years. And a lot of what I learned from SureClean and from HVAC and refrigeration, a lot of the client base were really a lot of the clients that TEXO deal with and would certainly like to deal more with and deal with for a start.
Right. So what skill sets have you brought to TEXO?
I think it's really it is the main thing for me is the people I have met in 30 years, engineering people, mechanical people, rig managers, asset managers, vessel superintendents and things. So it really is, for example, when I joined HVAC and refrigeration, I knew nothing about HVAC, but I knew people. And I think one of my traits is I'm likeable and I pay attention to my clients. I not only want to know what they do in a job, but I want to know a wee bit about them as well. What makes them tick, what they like to do in their time off, etc., etc. Just get to know clients.
So would you say that the saying is you buy from people?
Yeah. Yeah,
in the sales and the new business sort of sphere.
I think the saying "people buy from people" is true. Of course, you have to supply a good product and be honest and be upfront. I think something you have to do if you're going to miss a deadline or you're not capable of doing what they ask. You've got to let them know. You've got to tell them.
So honesty.
Absolutely, as honest as you can be as a salesman.
But it's interesting, I think one of the fundamental drivers of TEXO has been honesty and transparency.
Yep.
And simplifying the message. How would you say, how long have you been with TEXO so far? It's weeks, is it
this
not?
This is week 4. I've known TEXO. I've known of TEXO for 5 years, and I've known quite a few of the TEXO directors for that time as well. So I've known of TEXO. In fact, in my last role, we TEXO were a client, so I knew how they worked, how they went about their business and stuff. So when the opportunity to join TEXO came up, it was not a hard decision at all.
So what areas in TEXO are you going to be responsible for?
I think what makes this job most appealing is I can go in and speak to a client about HVAC. If that client doesn't want HVAC, I will speak about asset integrity. If they don't want asset integrity, I can speak about fabrication, engineering, design, etc., etc.
So was that one of the sort of selling points for you to sort of come and work with TEXO, is that it's a multifaceted organisation? You can, if one doesn't want to sell, there's going to be another opportunity to another.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think if you only have one product or one service to sell, it's a bit of a slog. Whereas if you can go in and promote the whole group, so there are 8 divisions, if you like, within TEXO now, I will be talking to clients about every division we have. Given the opportunity, I will be talking to clients about every division and promoting every division, and hopefully getting some inquiries in for each division as well.
So in your early days of promoting and selling TEXO services to your sort of client list, how have you found the reception?
The reception's been great. It's
makes your job easier.
It certainly does. It's still very difficult, but yes, it makes it easier. There is a slight frustration at the market just now. As a business development guy, I hate clients working from home, because I want to go in, see them, discuss what they're looking for, what they may be looking for, etc. So a lot of the correspondence nowadays is email, and emails, I'm not a fan of emails, and you get Teams meetings, but again, it's very much, what do you do? We can do this. What do you do? What do you need? We can do this. It's almost like reading off a script.
Do you find that post-COVID, that sense of remoteness from where people are working from impacts the humanising of sales and marketing? Because those people you can't go and see them, you can't read their face, you can't really do that on a Teams call. How has it affected the way that you interact with people?
I think it's not so much reading their face, because I like to think, if I'm being honest with a potential client or a client, they will be honest with me. But it has certainly impacted in that, yes, it's difficult. I'm a big believer in body language. And if I'm speaking to a client face to face and he looks at his watch, it's time to get
That's
out.
what I meant by sort of reading their face, is that you can tell so much by, if I'm not hitting the mark here, he's not obviously interested or she's not interested because they're fiddling with their watch, they're looking out the window. And in Teams, it's not like that.
No, you can't look at that type of thing. And people look at their watch, it's not because they're not interested, because they're very busy. And you have to be able to recognise when, okay, you've done your sales pitch.
How have you adjusted your, as an experienced new business developer, how have you adjusted, it's old dogs, new tricks, how have you adjusted to this quite unusual sort of scenario where people are remote?
I think it's a natural adjustment. 90% of the time you have no choice. People are very busy. They are encouraged not to come into the office. So you just have to make the best of the tools you have. Obviously nowadays, if this happened 10 years ago, Teams meetings and things would have been something that had never been spoken about. So at least technology now has given us opportunity to still speak to people face to face, albeit to a computer screen.
You made a comment there of people are being encouraged. You hear a lot more of these sort of companies asking for staff to return to the office. Have you sort of experienced that? Are people coming back? Do you see them returning to the office?
Yes, and it's a good thing. I think employers still have a duty to offer staff the opportunity to work from home. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Personally speaking, I don't like working from home. I like being being in the hub of the things, hearing the conversations between fellow colleagues, workers, etc., etc. It is better than it was a year, 2 years ago, for sure. And I must admit, I've had more face-to-face meetings in the last month than I've had this year in my previous role. So things, from my perspective, are improving, are getting better, and we're getting back to doing some work with a person rather than with an email or with a screen.
I just remember shortly after sort of lockdown or lockdowns were lifted, the first meetings that you had with people were almost like a celebration of freedom, and people loved to sort of have a meeting. Yes, please come and see me. Is that sort of excitement still there, or do you find that it's sort of waning in terms of the way people are wanting to return to work?
No, I think the people I speak to and request meetings, yes, there is a not a demand for it. There is a leaning towards, yes, come in and see me. My God, it's been years since I saw you. Please come in and get me up to date with what you're doing, what the company's doing, etc., etc. So there is definitely a sway towards that. There's a way to go, but it is certainly going that direction, and long may it continue.
Good. If I was to say, from a personal perspective, what's your sort of USP when you're introducing your sort of techniques in sales?
Oh, I suppose it's there's not a particular one or two. It's wide and varied. You have to do your homework. So when I go in and see a client, I like to be able to talk about upcoming projects, how their company's doing, not just telling them how TEXO are doing. Find out how their company's doing, what they think the future is for them, what the future is for their company. It's just showing interest in a client. The end game is to get inquiry, yes, absolutely. But to me, it is more of get to know the client, so that if there is not a requirement here and now, it might be 6 months down the line, might be a year down the line, and I do not want a client saying, "Oh, I've not seen Gary from TEXO or Gary from here. I've not heard from him for 2 years." There is always opportunities come out of the blue, and I strive to make sure that if it's related to the company I'm working for, that is my name they think of first.
It's interesting, actually. I've always believed in, if you show the effort, the client is normally very responsive to listening to you. And it's amazing how many companies would rather have a Teams call than knock on the door and actually sort of say, can I come and see you? Do you find clients reward you, or maybe reward's the wrong word, are more receptive to you as an individual, and therefore then selling TEXO, when you make the effort to go and try and see them and set up a meeting?
Whenever I get in touch with a client, my first or my last sentence in the email or whatever, or conversation, is always, look, we can chat all day, but I'd love to come in and catch up, or discuss this or discuss that. It's again, it will depend on the company that the client works for, their policy, etc., etc. But I will always try and get in and see someone. So as I say, you can look them in the eye, and find out where they're coming from, where they want to go.
You might have brushed on it a few minutes ago. How tough is it out there in terms of, because it's, yes, there's the resurgence, say, in oil and gas, but how have you found the marketplace in general?
I suppose it relates to working from home. There are certain days in the week when you try and phone someone, you phone reception, and there's no one on reception, and so it's a case of leaving a message, and hopefully they will pass the message on when appropriate, type thing.
Because there's a perception out there, I would say, that there's a boom in say oil and gas and other sectors, and obviously TEXO is one of its sectors. But if you look at renewables, are there opportunities for TEXO to grasp, or do you think that some of these contracts or some of the work out there is almost predestined for some of the larger organisations?
I think TEXO are still the new kids in the block, and clients will always have companies that they have used before, tried and trusted, and it is very difficult to edge your way into that particular client.
Yeah.
But again, it is just a case of keeping in touch, because something somewhere along the line may happen. And as I said earlier, I really want it to be me and TEXO they think of first, should they have a shortfall.
But the other thing is, as well, is it's how beneficial when you're selling a company is it when you have 8 different divisions and those 8 divisions service one another. So you can provide a service to a company which might be a multifaceted solution, but TEXO can serve them all. Is that a really good tangible tool to go in with?
It absolutely is. I know several of the companies I've worked with in the past, and potential clients have gone to great lengths to reduce their approved vendor list. One in particular decided that if they hadn't used a company for 2 years, they would wipe them from their vendor list type thing. So again, it's important to make sure you're in touch, keeping in touch with people, and keeping on top of what each company is doing. Trying to be one step, if possible, try to be one step ahead of the client, looking at projects. Okay, this project's coming up, they may need this, that, the next thing. TEXO can do X, Y, and Z. So it's a case of keeping on top of things and keeping ahead of future plans.
One of the things I've noticed since working with TEXO is that you get pigeonholed quite quickly, so that you might have provided a specific service for a client and not necessarily they're aware of all the other services. Do you find that that's going to be a challenge to sort of hunt those out and go back into those organisations to actually then present the other services to them?
I think the hard bit is getting in front of the client. I don't think it'll be overly difficult selling the whole package, if you like. As I said, companies are reducing their approved vendor lists, so if they can have TEXO in their books and they can do engineering, fabrication, modular solutions.
Why wouldn't you reduce that?
Absolutely, yeah. And for example, we had a meeting with a client in Aberdeen last week. We took the small leaflet, it's not a huge leaflet, it's just a small, and the procurement person was flicking through it. Oh, I see you do this. One of them looked at the recruitment section. Never knew you did recruitment. Can you get your hands on an X, Y, and a Z type thing? So getting in front of clients and I think selling the whole 8 divisions, if you like, wouldn't be that difficult. Again, it is just getting in front of the client, and again, half an hour is not a long time. An hour's far too long. So somewhere in between to get your point across, and your expertise of the company, of the group getting across that is a hard bit.
The company motto, "Together we are one." What does it mean to you?
I knew TEXO 4 or 5 years ago. I had a conversation with one of the senior management team, and I felt my feeling was it was very much each division was, I'm doing fine. If everybody else is doing fine, great. If not, at least I'm doing fine. What I noticed when I had a chat about coming to TEXO a couple of months ago now was it certainly seemed to be everybody's batting for everybody. And if one person or one division gets a bit of work, they'll say, okay, thanks very much for your PO. Do you realise the group does this, this and this? And they were trying to add value, I suppose. I'm very aware of that, and that seems to be the way things are done here. And it certainly wasn't that. In my opinion, it wasn't that. The situation wasn't the same 4 or 5 years ago.
So you would say that your early recollections have been removed because you can see a different methodology going on within TEXO. Everybody is working to better the central cause.
Yes, absolutely. It's I have noticed that everybody within TEXO is quite keen to speak about who they're dealing with, the companies they're talking to, rather than keep it to themselves.
So there's much more of an inclusive approach. People would rather talk and share and develop relationships with clients rather than try and keep them to themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's a natural thing to do. You have your own little black book. Let's keep it to myself.
Yes, yeah. No, I think for sure it's there's an attitude of if we can add to the TEXO group, great. We don't really care who gets the credit for it, as long as the group as a whole benefits for new leads, new projects, new RFQs.
And it's interesting that we were talking about, and you'd mentioned the habit of people working remotely, and obviously TEXO has a policy of, I think it's 2 days at home and 3 days in the office, so it has a remote working policy. But there's a lot of people in all the time.
That's interesting. I never asked if I could ever work from home. So it's as I said earlier, I thrive on being in the office, hearing the chat and about how jobs are going, what projects people are running with. I don't know if that's a policy here or not. To be honest, it's not a question I asked when I had the preliminary chat with the guys about coming to TEXO.
There's another interesting part that I've seen sort of manifest over that, I would say though, probably over the last 10 years. It'd be interesting to get your viewpoints on it. Is within the world of procurement, and every company has a procurement sort of team, it's rules and regulations for good and bad, I think, have come into effect where, you can't go and play a game of golf with someone. You can't take them a bottle of wine because and for sort of certain reasons why, but that human contact where you would thank someone has been removed. Have you? So what's your view on that?
I understand it because I worked for one company in particular, and they were very generous at Christmas time with clients.
Is that wrong, do you think? It is it's a knife edge, isn't it?
It was a done thing. 20 years ago it was a done thing. It was, if you had a client who had given you work, you would give them a bottle of wine, a bottle of whiskey, a nice pen, a diary, etc.
But they wouldn't have given you work if you were rubbish.
No, that's absolutely right. Yeah. No.
So you still had to deliver on it.
If you provided a rubbish product or a rubbish service, you wouldn't get in the front door.
I know some organisations took it to the wrong side of the fence, but I just think if you get it balanced, there's no harm in thanking someone. It's sort of, I think in a way some of these things have dehumanised again even further the relationship that you can have with people.
No, I think you're right. With TEXO, I hopefully will take some clients for a game of golf, for example. TEXO, through their foundation, sponsor Aberdeen Football Club. That part of that sponsorship is you're afforded a table at each home game. So we invite a lot of clients along to that, and a lot of clients accept it because it's seen as, well, it's paid for anyway. So why do we not go and have a nice something to eat, watch Aberdeen?
But the interesting thing about, you mentioned, and we'll come on to that, is when we take clients to the football, to Aberdeen, it's really towards bolstering the foundation and the Archie children that we take. So it's very much that a lot of the clients can meet some of the children and the nurses and the staff, and it's more of an experience to sort of show what we do through the foundation. How important, and learning about what TEXO does in the foundation, the other areas of the foundation, how important was that when you looked at TEXO to join?
Well, I think, and it was highlighted the recent Offshore Europe, we probably focus more on the foundation, on what we actually offer to the clients type thing. TEXO are very proud of the foundation, and so they should be. When I again, before I had the conversations that led me to joining TEXO, went on the website and I was really impressed with the foundation. And it wasn't just a case of how much you need, £5,000, okay, there's a sum of money. They would ask what the particular sponsor of a person or a team or or a school or whatever, what do you need? How can we help? What can we give you that is going to save you splashing out much of your hard-earned funds or money, and sponsoring that way rather than just throwing cash at it. And that, to me, that's a personal touch. It's showing interest in what someone or something needs to better itself, or to allow additional storage or additional classrooms or additional whatever. It's a clever way of doing it, and it's I know that it's very much appreciated.
So a lot of the people that you speak to find the foundation a lure.
I don't know if it's a lure, but it's certainly a topic of conversation. So far, the clients have been in saying I mention it, and there is great interest in a company such as TEXO giving something back, if you like.
Team. We always talk about staff and team. In your sort of sector that you're working in within TEXO, how important is the team? And it's the name and shame. Are they any good?
They're okay. No, I think when I alluded to the divisions being more of a group now, it is one huge team, to be honest. I know it's a well-used phrase, but there does seem to be much more of a team ethic than there was previously, I think, in my opinion. Everybody's very friendly. There's coffee mornings and things going on, and there's a barbecue just to let the staff meet each other and learn a wee bit about each other, and chat about past experiences and what they've done, who they know, that type of thing. So
you came to the last barbecue?
I hadn't started. I missed it by...
You missed the bucking bronco.
Did I? Right, okay.
And so did most people. I think they took it as an insurance risk.
Right, okay. No, it was on the Friday. I started on the Monday, so I didn't think it was right that before my start date.
No, well, you would have been welcome.
I'm sure I was invited, yes.
Gary, big thank you. Thanks very much for asking the questions and being part of the podcast. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Cool.
Cheers, mate.
Nice one.